Hello there guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video today we're going to be going over the A-League expansion for the upcoming years. In this video we're going to cover four key sections, which is expansion of the league, the chopping block, which will be teams we might get rid of, the second division that they'll implement, or I think they should implement, and we also have the transfer and marquee schemes with the salary cap. Here we have a list of teams that I think would be great candidates to add to the league, and I'll go through them all with some detail. So up first we have Canberra. Canberra already have a W League team in the Australian football system. They have the city, they're the capital of Australia, and their city has a population of 395,000 people. They currently have a stadium which they use for rugby, which is called GRO Stadium. That would seats about 25,000 people, so it'd be suitable for a soccer match. And Canberra has a pretty decent crowd for W League, so I think they should give them a chance as the capital of the country. Next team is South Melbourne FC. Their seniors currently play in the NPL, which is the second tier below the A League, but there's no promotion method. Um, they've what now before the A League there used to be a league called the NSL, and that was the main soccer league in Australia before the rebranding. They managed to win three titles in 8 years, and they also had a big following throughout the course of their participation in that competition. The club has a stadium in Lakeside, which is called Lakeside Stadium. It fits about 12,000 people, and this club also has a really big following in terms of like people that follow that team only, and a lot of people like Greeks follow that team, so they can get that market into the game. And I believe that they'd be a good candidate. Maybe even making them a Southeast Melbourne team, maybe trying to bring in more of the eastern suburbs into that one. We have Wollongong Wolves, which is another team which is in the NPL, but this time it's a New South Wales-based team. They have a stadium that fits 23,750, which is big even to the A-League standards. I believe that Wollongong have a big following, and they're just kind of far south of Sydney, kind of in New South Wales, so far south of Sydney, so they can get their own little fan group. And they also have a pretty decent following in the NPL, which you could bring over into the A-League. So we have Auckland in New Zealand. They used to have the New Zealand Knights, I'm pretty sure, and the Football Kings, which used to be teams that played in I think the NSL, and then the New Zealand team that played in Auckland was in the first 2 years of the A-League. But they have a population of 1.6 million, and they have a variety of stadiums due to rugby that they can use. And then we have Hobart and I want to say Launceston. This is a possible expansion into Tasmania, as a lot of like key sports leagues in Australia have ignored the chance to expand there. I think only the Big Bash League has a team there, which is called the Hobart Hurricanes, but they have a population of 240,000 and 78,000 respectively. It could be a big rivalry between the two, but I think Hobart's the only real realistic option. They would have to build stadium and infrastructure for a soccer team though. Then we have a team in Darwin that we could have. The Darwin and like Northern Territory has its own NPL scheme, so there are a few teams you could bring up. They have the TRO Stadium, which has hosted a few AFL matches, which has a capacity of 12,000. Darwin itself has about 148,000 people inside its borders, which would probably be big enough for a team at least in the second division. So another area that's rather neglected when it comes to sports, so it'd be good for their people to enjoy the, I guess, experience of having a team to support there, besides just having friendly games between his teams from like Melbourne up there. So it'd be good for them to actually find a team and build support for them. You also another NPL team in Sydney is Sydney Olympic FC. They play at a stadium called Belmore Sports Complex, and it has 20,000 people. So again, pretty big for an A-League team. And as they're in the NPL, they have their own facilities. Somewhat would probably need a bit of a buff, but that'd be a good team to bring up. They're kind of just like only maybe a few kilometers south of the Sydney CBD, so could forge a big rivalry with Sydney FC and Western Sydney Wanderers. And finally, Brisbane are another expansion option. It's the third biggest city in Australia with 2.2 million people. Now, Suncorp is being used by Brisbane Roar, obviously, as you can see in this clip, so they would have to find another facility. There is a stadium called Ballymore Stadium, which fits 18,000 people, and in the past, the Brisbane City Group have been trying to bring Brisbane a second team to the Australian's premier soccer competition. We have to see how that goes. Honourable mentions for expansion can probably go to Adelaide. Adelaide could do with another team, as Adelaide United are kind of mid-par in terms of attendance and membership, but Adelaide United could be an option. And you can also look at cities like Fremantle in the like Fremantle and the Western Australia, because they have a few they have NPL team there and they have facilities. And if you look at the AFL, Fremantle Dockers got supported very well and they got added, so it wouldn't be too far out of my imagination to see a Fremantle team being added to the competition. Now let's move on to the chopping block. We'll start the chopping block off with the Central Coast Mariners. Even when they were successful in 2013, they still had pretty lackluster clouds that didn't even break 10,000 as an average. The members and attendance numbers have just been going down since then, as they're pretty much one of the biggest laughing stocks in the competition. I believe that out of all the teams, if we have to get rid of any, Central Coast is one that has to go. Now, second, we'll go with Newcastle, reaching records in attendance now, only just now, after 15 years in the league. It's also noteworthy that Newcastle existed before the A-League in the NSL in some form, with a team in Newcastle. We'll move to third now, as you can see, playing now just scored the goal. We have Brisbane. They have poor attendance now, but when they were winning back in the early parts of the last decade, they were very successful in terms of attendance and that. And then Wellington also are another team in the conversation. However, I think that the New Zealand rivalry would strengthen their supporter base. Here's just a little quick concept of what the A-League could look like once all the expansion teams are in. You obviously have the A-League just plussing in Macarthur and Western United. We also added Canberra United and South Melbourne FC into that. These teams are all interchangeable though. And you've had a second just to look at the second division there. The second division should have Gold Coast United, which is an old team you could bring back from the NPL setup. You could bring up Darwin, Sydney Olympic, Hobart. You could bring up Launceston if you have to. Brisbane City, Wollongong, Auckland City FC. You can bring up Adelaide Football Club. You can bring up Fremantle, and you could also bring up Sunshine Coast. There's a few mid-major cities in Australia with like middle 200,000s of populations that you could bring the call up to. As you can see, I've just got some championship footage playing from England. I believe that the championship will help, if we have a second division, will help create a better standard for the league, as it gives the youngsters in Australia to actually an actual league to play in. Because the issue we find with the A-League is that a lot of players have to kind of go all over the place, because teams in the A-League, to actually get people to go to the games, they actually need to be successful. And if they're not successful, no one's really going to go, as you see with Central Coast, Newcastle, Wellington, list goes on. You actually need to be successful and have good players. And part of the draw is that when you bring in good players, the youngsters don't get the chance to shine. And it's probably why Australia has like 27 million people and is only like barely qualifying for the World Cup most years. So I believe that if we have a second division, it'll give better grassroots opportunities for the youngsters, and it'll also create more of a punishment for being bad. Unlike Central Coast, who can just perennially be the bottom of the league and have no punishment. It also will make the game grow as well, instead of having just a few cities that have it in it. Because if you look at it, there's 3 in Melbourne and then there's 4 in New South Wales, so it's barely not international, it's barely a league that's statewide. So anyway, that's the video, guys. If you would like any more videos about expansion, just like and comment. Until then, see ya. Thanks for watching. Bye.